Welcome to the Compliance Officer's Playbook podcast. Today, we are analyzing a really crucial political agreement that's just been reached by EU lawmakers. It's all about the future of payment services. And really, it's a deal that fundamentally rewrites the rules for liability, for competition and consumer trust right across the single market.
That's exactly right. We are diving deep into
Yeah.
this massive regulatory overhaul. We're talking about the Third Payment Services Directive, or PSD3, and its sister regulation, the new Payment Services Regulation, the PSR.
Right.
And this political agreement is, it's arguably the most significant piece of financial legislation since the original PSD.
Right.
It all centers around three interconnected pillars. First, drastically reducing payment fraud by shifting responsibility.
Okay.
Second, improving fair competition, especially in the open banking sector.
Yeah.
And finally, mandating really robust, transparent consumer protection.
So our mission today is to move past the headlines and really unpack the specific, the operational mechanics of these changes, especially where that balance of liability is shifting. Our goal is simple. We want to make sure you walk away knowing exactly what technological and compliance investments your financial institution has to prioritize across Europe and, well, why. Let's jump straight into the biggest headache for PSPs, fraud liability.
The message from regulators here is, well, it's unambiguous. Fraud prevention is no longer optional. It's a mandatory, legally enforceable duty. The regulation states that if a payment service provider, a PSP, fails to implement the right prevention mechanisms, they're automatically liable for the customer's financial losses.
So it's a total shift. It moves the discussion from, was the customer being negligent, to, did the PSP system do enough?
Precisely.
Okay, let's unpack the centerpiece of this change, because this is where the operational rubber really meets the road, the name match rule. The sources make this mandatory across the EU. What does that compliance challenge actually look like? I mean, when a PSP has to verify the payee's name against their account number before a payment goes through.
It's a seismic shift, and the compliance complexity it's high. Right now, most domestic payments just rely on the account identifier. Now, PSPs will be required to check that the payee's name actually matches the registered details.
And what if it doesn't match?
If there's a discrepancy, the PSP must refuse the payment order. Or, at the very least, they have to issue an extremely clear mandatory warning to the payer. And if the payer proceeds after that warning, then they assume the full liability.
So this is basically the death knell for a lot of simple, high-volume APP scams.
It is. We're talking about everything from simple invoice manipulation fraud, where a scammer just changes the beneficiary name on an invoice, to much more sophisticated CEO fraud attempts.
But doesn't this mandatory check risk slowing things down? I mean, the EU has been pushing for instant payments. If I'm trying to pay a company overseas with a complicated name, that verification isn't going to be instantaneous.
And that is precisely the implementation hurdle. The legislation recognizes this, but the mandate forces the industry to find a technical solution. We're probably looking at harmonized databases or some kind of standardized verification APIs. The priority here is very clear. It's protection over speed when fraud is a real risk. Compliance teams need to be assessing their capabilities for real-time name matching right now.
Okay, so here's where the liability shift gets even more comprehensive. Impersonation scams. This is that really tricky area where a fraudster tricks a customer by pretending to be from the bank itself. A bank employee calls you up and convinces you to approve a transfer. What are the rules on liability there?
In that specific scenario, if a fraudster successfully impersonates a PSP and tricks the customer, the PSP has to refund the full amount. It's a massive reversal of how it used to work, where the customer who approved the payment would typically just bear the loss. There is a key condition, though. The customer has to report the fraud to the police and inform their own PSP immediately. This keeps the customer vigilant, but places the ultimate financial burden on the institution whose identity was, exploited.
And now the regulatory hammer is extending beyond just financial firms. This links the new payment rules directly to the Digital Services Act, the DSA. So liability for fraud can now, in some cases, extend to the big online platforms. That's a huge shift.
It is, and it significantly broadens the scope of who's responsible. If a large online platform or a search engine is hosting fraudulent content, say an investment scam ad, and they are formally informed about it, but then they fail to remove it, they face a new liability. If a customer then loses money because of that specific ad, the platform could be liable to compensate the PSP that had to reimburse the customer.
So wait, the PSP pays the customer back under the new rules, but then they can turn around and sue the platform to get their money back. How does the PSP prove that the platform failed to act? That sounds like an operational nightmare for evidence gathering.
That's the billion-euro question.
If you're loving this conversation and want to be part of keeping it going, the best way to support the show is to become a paid subscriber on Apple Podcasts. You'll get access to the full episode, plus every deep dive we do. Head to Apple Podcasts, search Compliance Officer's Playbook, and join our growing community today. Invite listeners who love this show to become a paid subscriber today for $5 USD, and get full access to all premium episodes packed with insights, stories, and value they won't find anywhere else. Thank you for joining us on the Deep Dive.